It's great to be here. It's great to see people that we've known. I hear names and people that have been in Hawaii, either coaching, swimming, setting world records, and being international champions. But it's wonderful to be here to speak to you folks about, like Chris said, what we do as professionals. And we wanted to talk this morning about, specifically about the rough water swim in Waikiki, which has been going on for 41 years, Kaya? And Kaya's got a presentation about the swim, so I don't want to steal any of her thunder. 41 years, this will be 42. Life's greatest beach. We have to, HTA made me bring this slide so that you all come to Hawaii to do the swim and enjoy the scenery and experience the currents. Next slide, thanks, Malcolm. So the Waikiki Rough Water Swim has been going on since 1970. And I believe the first group of brave swimmers, there were about 60 people in the first swim. And it's grown now to 1,000 entries. Okay. It starts at Sans Souci Beach, which is next to the Waikiki War Memorial Natatorium, and ends at the Hilton Hawaiian Village. 2.4 miles, right. Okay. This wasn't 2003. We're going to talk about the 2003 event, but this is a start, I believe, 2008. But it just gives you an idea of how many people are in the event, how many people start, and kind of what it looks like from the water perspective. This is the first buoy, the first turn buoy outside of the Sans Souci Channel. It's about 600 meters. This is where, in 2003, people were experiencing a little bit of current. Were any of you there? Great. Cool. Good. You guys should be up here talking about 2003. Okay. 900 starters, 300 finishers. Okay, so what happened to the 600? 300 of them were rescued, either by lifeguards, by volunteers. I'm sure there were some scouts out there. There were people on kayaks. There were volunteers on surfboards. Okay, so they really did help in that rescue effort. Air One helicopter came and helped bring people in, and the city and county had jet skis out there. Okay, but primarily in 2003, we relied on volunteers to do the safety, as I think you're well aware. So the first turn buoy is when people started experiencing the current. So next slide, please. This is from NOAA. This is a tide chart from NOAA. September 1st, 2003, high tide was at about at 8 a.m. And it started dropping. So right at 9 a.m. at the start, the tide was going down. And it was pulling pretty significantly, if you will. There were boats. I don't know if you could call them safety boats. There were boats that set the buoys and the flags out there. And a friend of mine that was on the boat experienced that current as it started pulling at 9 o'clock. And he was trying to get a hold of the director on the beach. They had Motorola radios that Motorola had donated to the swim committee. No one bothered to charge the batteries. Okay. So it's like a perfect storm. All the things you hear about Murphy's Law, these things were going on. No one could be contacted on the beach with the Motorola radios. We tried to call them on a cell phone. And by the time the race director picked up the cell phone, because he was at the start, there was a little activity at the start, the guy on the boat said, hey, I don't think we should go. Boom, the cannon went off. So 900 people entered. Well, the first heat entered the water. So as they made that first turn at the 600 meters, they're experiencing a pretty strong outgoing tide. Next. Some of you know Bill Gotting. He's a city and county lifeguard. And he's also a pretty well-known channel swimmer. I believe he's done every channel in Hawaii now. He hasn't, Malcolm's waiting him for do one more. But I talked to Bill, and he was swimming in place. He said he saw the same coral head for like 2-3 minutes. But he was fortunate enough to be strong enough to bust through the current. And Nadine Day, are you here in the audience? Nadine Day was also, I think, the third female finisher that year. And we spoke with Nadine about the current as well. People were going backwards, folks. We were picking people up halfway to Diamond Head Buoy, if you know where that is. Okay, so it was strong, it was pulling. And he said it was his slowest time. Okay, next slide. In addition to the tide, there was a tropical storm that started late August and crossed to the south of Hawaii on race day. And you know, everyone was aware of that, or people were aware of that. And they said, oh, well, it's far enough south and it's not going to affect us, so we're going. So the race went on. Next slide. There's tidal movement and currents affected by the tide, but there's also currents that are created by just eddies and movement of water. And the tsunami that happened last week, that's a really good example of how much volume of water can move around and how that affects current. This is a prevailing eddy that happens just because we're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. This is a countercurrent. This is Waikiki Beach. Okay, so here's the start, here's the finish, here's a countercurrent going, and that's not just tidal. So there's really two flows that are affecting you while you're out there. That's wonderful to hear while you're swimming, huh? And looking at the coral heads. This slide was put together by a friend up at the university, and the reason for showing things like this is this kind of data is available to you. You know, it's not just, like in 2003 was, okay, look at the tide chart and NOAA says the storm's passing to the south. But we've got a lot of information and data that you can rely on to kind of predict. They have models that you can predict what's going to happen. Next slide. Okay, so people make that first turn, and some of them are going backwards, and some of them are hanging on to the buoys, and people are being picked up. There's a little bit of chaos. These guys are happy because this wasn't 2003. Okay. Kaya there, 361 rescues. Oh, you want to go back? So if you know anyone here in the slide. Okay. Okay. So the fire department helicopter was called. They plucked people out of the water. People were hanging on the buoys. People were hanging on to Boy Scout surfboards. People were hanging on to 6-man canoes because there was a lot of boats in the area. Okay? There are friends, volunteers at that point that are there to support the swimmers and the athletes. You know, and it wasn't, I don't know if it was that dangerous. I heard the story, one of my jet ski operators said that he went up to a canoe and there were like 20 people hanging onto the canoe. And they were like singing and, you know, waiting to be helped. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, for the majority of the swimmers, the conditions were too strong for them to be out there. Next. There she is. And Ms. Day, who has roots in the islands, was a really, really good age group swimmer, continues to be an outstanding national level swimmer. Tides and currents change rapidly, doesn't matter how strong a swimmer you are. Okay, and she has secrets about swimming next to the reef and, you know, how to get through it. But, you know, Nadine is an outstanding swimmer. She's not the average Waikiki rough water swimmer. Next. Okay, so what did we learn after that that event? Fortunately, we didn't lose anyone. At midnight, I believe there was one person unaccounted for. Hey, people were like just turning around and going back or just swimming into the beach. And it was pretty difficult to keep track of everyone. And like I said, fortunately, we did not lose anyone. So what did we learn from that experience? Chris refers to the open water swimming event safety guides developed by USLA, and I'd encourage you to look them up on the website. It's a document that a lot of thought was put into and a lot of work from people that know what to do. So I really encourage you to look at that. And once again, the need to hire or have professional lifeguards at your event. And you know, there's ratios. Well, how many lifeguards should you have? What kind of equipment should you have? That should be determined by the lifeguards. Okay? And unfortunately, like Chris said, a lot of times it's determined by budget or lack of budget. Okay, but it's something that people really need to ensure. We have personal watercraft, we have certified lifeguards, rescue boards, rescue tubes, and we also have emergency action plans for dealing with any kind of situation that might come up. Next. Our experiences with swims and races, whether they be open water swims or paddleboard races, canoe races, is that the jet ski and the camera are up front because the people on the ski want to film the guys in the front. Okay, that's not where you need the safety, as you all know. You need it in the pack, and you need it in the back. Okay, so the emphasis on safety should not be with your guys in the front because those are the people, those are the elite swimmers. Okay? The majority of the swimmers at for instance, Waikiki are not elite world-class athletes. Okay, so we have to look after them. This is wonderful, isn't it? The point of the slide is the data is available to you. Okay, in 2003, like I said, we had a tide chart, we had some NOAA buoy data, and that was about it. Okay, it's 2011. Your local NOAA office or whomever you work with has a myriad of models, of current models, and they can tell you pretty much what's going on in the ocean or in your open water. So that data is available to you. The other thing we learned about was communications. Okay, and the story about the radios that were not charged. And it's really important to have an incident command system set up. I know that Greg's going to talk about that. But your communications from the water to the beach have to be very reliable. Okay. As lifeguards, we talk about prevention, we talk about planning, and we talk about emergency action plans. And those are all things that should be included in your race checklist. Okay. So that everybody finishes. And you have to keep track of them. Okay, like I said, in 2003, there was one person that was not accounted for at midnight and eventually showed up the next day. Okay, but you have to account for all the people that are in your race and make sure that they finish. So that was kind of lessons learned from 2003, and I'm really happy that Kaya's here. Because she is the new president of the Waikiki Rough Water Swim, and the safety has gotten improved 200%, and with Kaya's leadership, it's become a great event. And we're encouraging you to come to Honolulu on Labor Day to participate. Okay? Thank you very much.